Every year, People for Bikes publishes a list of the top biking cities in North America. And this year, Brooklyn was #1, the top big biking city. Now, I think this title was relatively well earned because there's been a lot of efforts put into making Brooklyn and New York City overall more bikeable. But it's not really that affordable. And that got me to thinking, where are the affordable biking cities? Because if you look at the list, most of them are not there. I mean, Brooklyn, the average rent is over $3,000. And for the average person, that's really expensive. So if you're looking for bike-friendly cities that are still affordable, this video is for you. Biking has become really popular in recent years, and I think that's happening for a variety of different reasons, whether it be the pandemic, the rising gas prices, more congestion in cities, etc. And cities really seem to be embracing this trend more and more. The reality is some of these cities on this list are just not affordable for the average American. For example, San Francisco, the average rent is $3,230, and Manhattan is $4,265. Now, I want to be really clear. I got nothing against People for Bikes. Actually, I'm a pretty strong advocate for what they do, and we've been grateful to work with them on some projects. Now, for the People for Bikes scale, affordability wasn't one of the highest items on their rating list, but for this video, we want to focus a bit more on this because I do think that for a lot of people, this is probably one of the most important factors. This also sparks another really huge point for discussion. Should only wealthy people be able to live in cities that are bikeable and safe for bicyclists? Well, we'll talk more about that later in the video. But before we get into our list, I just want to first explain how we came up with these numbers. So I actually started this discussion on Twitter, and I was also talking with my friend Chris Sanders, who we did a video with a couple years ago. Now, Chris is really great with data and creating lists, and he's kind of a computer scientist. First, we created this list based on what we felt was important to people. 40% is based on bike infrastructure, 20% on public transportation, because if you want to live car-free, it's nice to have alternatives other than a bike. 20% on the walkability score, 20% on housing affordability, and then 10 extra credit points based on weather. However, I should note that weather shouldn't be the biggest determining factor because one thing we found is some of the most popular biking cities don't actually have the best weather. After using these calculations, it still didn't work out so well because San Francisco still came out as #1. And it's still over 2.5 times the national average for rent. We wanted to start by defining what's actually affordable. So we decided to do a little bit more research and calculate things based on the median income in the United States. It seems that most sources recommend that you only spend about 30% of your income on rent. That means that the median income in the United States is $70,000. Before taxes, you're making about $5,833. 30% of that is about $1,750. Of course, there are ways to still live in some of these expensive cities, but to do this on an average income, you kind of got to get creative. You might have to do things like share an apartment with somebody, get lucky and find a good deal, or you could make the choice to live in some of the less sought after areas. But in our experience, those also happen to be the areas that don't have great bike infrastructure, so it doesn't really work so well. But here's a list of cities that we find to be the best affordable cities to live in the United States. Starting with number 10 on the list, we have Pittsburgh, where the average rent is $1,378 a month. Pittsburgh currently has more than 60 miles of bike lanes, countless bike racks, bike share, and a trail that connects you all the way to Washington, D.C. In 2020, Pittsburgh published their 10-year bike plan, the Bike Plus plan. This includes things such as more protected bike lanes and traffic calming street designs. They want to add 123 miles of infrastructure by 2030 and are doing their best to market how less stressful streets are beneficial to everyone. Number 9 on the list is St. Louis, with an average rent of $1,058 a month. St. Louis has a gateway bike plan which is aiming to connect St. Louis region with greenways so people can explore their rivers, parks, and communities. In 2019, Alta Planning and Design began to produce a St. Louis County action plan for walking and biking. They plan on building more and more infrastructure in the city for biking. In February 2022, St. Louis lawmakers approved a $22 million plan for downtown protected bike paths and a bridge reconstruction to include a bike path. Number 8 on the list is Milwaukee, with an average rent of $1,308 a month. The city of Milwaukee has over 85 miles of bike lanes. They also have miles of paved trails for bike use. Recently, the city passed plans that include millions of dollars to help fund protected bike lanes, traffic calming measures with things like narrowed roads and safe routes to school. Number 7 on the list is Detroit, with an average rent of $1,166 a month. The city of Detroit has a greater downtown area bicycle network plan, which they're using to achieve a bicycle network with protected, connected, and accessible infrastructure. On top of these bicycle plans, the city is also working to improve their public transportation. The city is working with Copenhagenized Design Company, an international bicycle and design company, in order to come up with the new bicycle network designs. They want to encourage the use of bicycles as a normal form of transportation and want to support the infrastructure to do this. Number 6 on the list is Sacremento, with an average rent of $1,782 a month. Sacramento is near much of the more expensive cities in Northern California, but a portion of the price. They have great train stations that take you to all nearby major cities. They have electronic bike lockers and secure bike parking, which means it's much easier to live car-free if you choose to. Each year they've been working on completing more and more bike infrastructure projects that they put into their bicycle master plan. Number 5 on the list is New Orleans, with an average monthly rent of $1,279. New Orleans has been designated as a silver-level bicycle-friendly community by the League of American Bicyclists. The bikeway network currently has more than 100 miles of on- and off-street bikeways, but the city is currently implementing a transportation plan which talks about things such as making sure there's safe routes to schools, education, and training in the community. On top of all that, they also have the 10th highest percentage of people who bike to work every day. Number 4 on the list is Philadelphia, with an average rent of $1,812. Philadelphia has great bike infrastructure and a high network score when compared to the rest of the country cities. And the network score is really important when you want to consider biking for a means of transportation. This really means how connected are the bike lanes. And I know from personal experience, there could be a lot of places that have great bike paths and they're great for recreation, but when you actually want to go somewhere, you might find they're a bit limited. So having a high network score is really helpful. There's plenty of opportunities for bike share rentals with their Indiegogo bike share program with 170 stations throughout the city with both classic and electric bikes. There are also plenty of scenic bike trails and loops around the city. Wait, hold on a second. I just got to interrupt for a second on this Philadelphia one. I split my time between Philadelphia and Brooklyn right now, and I think they still got a long ways to go. But they have a lot of really good bike infrastructure. One thing that's particularly challenging there is it seems that there's kind of like homicidal drivers there. I mean, I know people at times say New York is a little rough, but Philadelphia is a little scary. But overall, I think it's still a cool city. And as I get to bike more and more around, it's definitely growing on me. Number 3 on the list is Denver, with an average rent of $1,879 a month. Even though Denver's rent is slightly higher than recommended, we still thought it should make the list. 2.5% of people commute by bike as compared to the national average of 0.6. And 75% of Denver homes are now within a quarter mile of protected bike lanes. Over the past 3 years, they've added about 70 miles to their 125-mile bike lane project, and they are continuing to build. Denver aspires to be the benchmark city for riding a bike in Colorado and around the nation. Number 2 on the list is Minneapolis, where their average rent is $1,620 a month. Although Minneapolis is known for being snowy and cold, it's rapidly becoming more and more of a bicycle hotspot. Plus, they make sure to prioritize plowing the bike lanes when it does snow. About 4 to 5% of commuters bike to work, and there's plenty of green spaces and outdoor recreational opportunities. In 2016, they adopted a complete streets policy, which states that all new designs must prioritize, in this order, walkers, cyclists, buses, and then, last, cars. They also have plans for more bike parking and corrals, as well as a budget of $15 million worth of resurfacing and $1 million being just for protected bike lanes. Number 1 on this list is Portland, with an average rent of $1,680. While Portland is usually on the top biking cities list, it's also one of the more affordable cities to live. That, combined with the excellent infrastructure and a community of bicycle enthusiasts, are only some of the reasons that Portland made it to the number 1 spot on our list. 5.2% of commuters bike to work, which is huge compared to the national average. Plus, Portland has been working on their Portland Bike Plan for several years now and continues to add more and more infrastructure. This plan includes a map of the existing, funded, or suggested bicycle facilities around the city. But the bottom line is just do a little bit more research before you jump to moving to one of these cities just based on my recommendation. Some of these cities I've never even been to. This is just based on data. But from my side, I think one of my most important learnings from this is that cities that have good bike infrastructure quite often cost more money to live. And I don't want this to be like a real estate speculation video or anything like that, but there does seem to be some correlation there. Now, I would suspect in a lot of ways that cities that increase their bike infrastructure, the value of their homes will likely go up. For me personally, that would make it more attractive to me to move there. And based on the rules of supply and demand, that would increase the demand, which as a result would likely increase the prices. Now, I know there's some concerns when discussing the increase in home value and how that might relate to things like gentrification. But I think it's really important for us to consider how much it actually costs to live in some of these car-dependent cities. How not having mobility options can really have an economic burden on many people. Forbes recently did an article saying that it costs about $700,000 in somebody's lifetime to own a vehicle. Now, most homes cost less than that. Maybe home ownership would be more widespread if people had more mobility options. I think what many people don't realize is that car dependency could be one of the few things that stands in your way of economic security. But don't give up hope. You don't need to be rich to live in a bike-friendly city. And I think if we increase the education around these topics and we show politicians that this is actually what people want, maybe this can become more widespread. Maybe it could be more economical to live in all bike-friendly cities. And as a reminder, getting around by bike is not just more economical for people, it's also more economical for cities. I mean, it costs a lot of money to build roads for heavier vehicles like cars and trucks and things like that, but it seems to be always the first priority for us. Perhaps we're just stuck in the past and we can't think outside the box. But many places throughout the world have done this very effectively, so there's definitely a roadmap that we can follow. What do you guys think about this topic? Is this something important to you? I mean, I'm not sure that I'm staying where I am long term, and these are some of the things I want to think about. I want to be in a place that it's easy to get around by bike, and there's a community of people that bike. I feel comfortable doing it. And I'm not going to break the bank just to afford to pay for rent or a mortgage. But I'm sure there's cities that we missed on this list. Again, this is just going by some of the data that's available to us. And keep in mind, this data doesn't account for everything. I mean, Brooklyn, as I mentioned earlier, has pretty terrible bike parking. I mean, it has some bike parking, but really needs secure bike parking. I think this is one of the bigger limiting factors in cities overall. And beyond that, I think people are still not all that comfortable biking. And until we can get to a place where everybody's comfortable biking, I think we still have a long way to go. But I hope with better education and just working together, we can move to a place that, people are more understanding about these topics, and we can actually move in a direction that actually makes sense, not just sticking to the old way of doing things. But I hope you guys found this video to be helpful, and I look forward to seeing you in a future video. Well, see you soon.